The moment you stopped making yourself smaller, something inside them started to tremble. That's the truth they will never openly admit, and it lands heavier than any confession ever could. Because for a long time, they were relying on one assumption: you would stay quiet, uncertain, easy to shape, easy to doubt. But you broke that expectation without warning. You stepped outside the pattern they built for you. No permission asked, no announcement made. Just a shift in who you were becoming. And suddenly, the structure of their comfort started to fracture like ice under unexpected pressure. Picture a still lake, silent, controlled, predictable. Then a single stone drops into it. Nothing dramatic at first, just impact. Then the ripples begin to spread, reaching every corner of what used to feel stable. That's exactly what you became. Not loud, not chaotic, just different. And that difference was enough to disturb everything that depended on you staying the same. You didn't need a big reaction. You didn't need confrontation. You simply changed your energy, your awareness, your presence. And those subtle shifts traveled further than you ever intended. Now the same people who once felt comfortable around you can't quite explain what's changed. They feel tension where there used to be ease. They feel uncertainty where there used to be control. And here's something psychology has long pointed out. People don't fear chaos as much as they fear unpredictability. Chaos is obvious. It's visible. It can be prepared for. But quiet transformation? That's what unsettles the mind at its core. Because you became harder to predict, harder to read, harder to influence. And the moment someone realizes they can't map you anymore, their sense of control starts to collapse. While you were simply healing, focusing on yourself, choosing peace in silence, something shifted that they couldn't ignore. They felt it before you ever said a word. They felt the version of you they relied on disappear. They felt the innocence they underestimated turn into awareness. And without realizing it, they were already reacting to a version of you they no longer understood. You didn't even notice what you did. But trust me, they did. They noticed instantly. They noticed deeply. And it terrified them more than any argument or confrontation ever could. And thank you, chosen one. Before we keep going, don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing like and subscribe. It helps the message reach more souls who need it. It's not just content, it's a mission. And you being here means you're part of a force. Thanks for choosing to stand with this message. Now, let's slip right back into what's unfolding around you. Here's what they won't tell you. They depended on you, not knowing who you were. They relied on your doubt, your confusion, your softness, your silence. They survived off your hesitation. They benefited from your lack of boundaries. They loved the version of you that didn't ask questions, the one who apologized just for existing, the one who ignored red flags, the one who overgave, the one who believed their lies because your heart was just too honest. But then something happened. Something small on the outside, but massive on the inside. You stopped letting people talk to you any way they wanted. You stopped saying yes when you meant no. You stopped breaking yourself to keep others comfortable. You stopped allowing your loyalty to be taken as weakness. You stopped letting manipulation slide. You stopped pretending you didn't see the things your intuition whispered about. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You didn't become rude, you became real. You didn't become difficult, you became unavailable to disrespect. That's the shift, that's the earthquake. That's the moment the universe circled around you and said, finally. And the people who were used to your old patterns, they felt that shift like a storm rolling in behind their back. You didn't give them a warning. You didn't send out a memo. You didn't even do anything dramatic. You just changed. And they weren't ready for the upgraded version of you. Because the upgraded version sees everything. The upgraded version understands motives. The upgraded version can read intentions like subtitles. The upgraded version doesn't cling, doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. And that version of you is dangerous. Not because you harm anyone, but because you finally stopped harming yourself to please them. They are terrified because your clarity exposed them. Your strength revealed their weakness. Your boundaries exposed their dependence on your lack of boundaries. Your peace revealed their chaos. Your growth revealed their stagnation. And the funniest part in all of this, they know exactly what part of your evolution threatens them the most. They know the exact moment you woke up. They know the exact moment their influence stopped working. They know the exact second they lost access to the old you. And every day since then, they've been trying to act like nothing's different. But inside, the panic is eating them alive. And while they're losing sleep over what version of you they'll meet next, you're just out here trying to choose healthier thoughts, better habits, and cleaner energy. You're not even doing anything to them. You're just minding your business. But for people who thrived off your confusion, your peace feels like a threat. For people who needed you small, your confidence is a nightmare. For people who depended on your silence, your voice is a problem. For people who fed on your guilt, your self-respect is a disaster. They're not scared because you're doing something wrong. They're scared because you finally started doing something right. And here's the plot twist. You still don't fully know what you did. You're still trying to figure out why certain people started acting distant, tense, awkward, or defensive ever since you grew. But the truth is simple. When you evolve, people either rise with you or fall back into the shadows. And the ones falling back aren't falling because you pushed them. They're falling because your new level exposes their old tricks. You are a walking reminder of everything they refuse to work on. You are proof that healing is possible. Growth is possible. Self-respect is possible. And that makes you a threat to anyone committed to staying the same. The universe didn't make you stronger for no reason. It didn't sharpen your intuition for no reason. It didn't pull you out of old patterns for no reason. It didn't wake you up just so you could go back to sleep. You shifted because you were meant to. You shifted because you needed to. You shifted because staying who you used to be would have destroyed you. And now your evolution is exposing every person who only tolerated you when you were lost. You have no idea what you did, but they do. And believe me, they're absolutely terrified. This is just the beginning. Let's break down exactly why the new you has them watching their own shadows. And chosen one, seriously, thank you for being here. You didn't land on this message by accident. The universe nudged you because what comes next is going to hit differently. So, before we go any deeper, show some love to the mission behind this message. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with 777 so the universe knows you're ready to step into the version of yourself that has people trembling. And if you want to push this message further, you can bless the team with a super thanks. Whether it's a single cent or something bigger, every piece of support fuels the work that keeps truth like this reaching the souls who need it most. You're not just watching, you're helping this force grow. And now, let's ease right into the next part. If you really are who I think you are, you'll feel that pull to stay until the end. Because once we start breaking down why they're terrified of you, everything about your past interactions will finally make sense. Let's get into it. Number 1. When you broke free, their power fell apart like cheap paper. Nothing scares a manipulator more than the moment their favorite puppet cuts the strings. They felt that slice long before you even realized you stopped playing along. That's the part that eats them alive. You weren't plotting, you weren't scheming, you weren't trying to expose anyone. You simply grew quietly and naturally, and your evolution hit them like a spotlight they never asked for. Because the truth is simple. You didn't expose them with a fight. You exposed them by outgrowing the version of you they needed to control. They built their whole confidence on the belief that they knew how to steer you. They thought they had your emotions mapped out like a blueprint. They assumed you'd keep reacting the way you always did. But then something shifted in you, something they didn't see coming, something they couldn't measure or manage. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it broke their entire strategy. Think of it like this. Imagine someone leaning all their weight on a door, bragging about how they're strong enough to keep it shut. They smirk, they boast, they flex. But one day you simply walk away from the other side, and they crash to the floor because they never had real strength to begin with. Here's the hard truth. They weren't scared of losing you. They were scared of losing access to you. They were scared of losing the version of you who didn't question their motives. They were scared of losing the influence they thought was permanent. And the second you stopped feeding that influence, it died. Humans who rely on manipulation always bet on one thing: the other person staying unaware. As long as you were confused, self-doubting, or emotionally tangled, they were safe. They survived off your uncertainty. They needed you to be predictable. They needed your reactions. They needed your softness. They needed your guilt. They needed you to keep interpreting their pressure as care, their manipulation as concern, and their control as connection. But then you stopped responding to their cues. You stopped bending your energy around their moods. You stopped over-explaining yourself. You stopped seeking validation from people who gave you crumbs. You stopped letting guilt drive your decisions. And when your internal world shifted, their external world shook. The scariest kind of rebellion is the one that isn't announced. It just happens. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't declare war. You didn't throw a tantrum. You didn't expose them publicly. You simply changed the way you carried yourself. And that calm evolution forced them to face an ugly truth. Their influence only existed because you allowed it. Once that allowance disappeared, so did their power. Your silence used to work in their favor. Now your silence works against them. Because now your silence doesn't mean confusion. It means clarity. It means awareness. It means you're done entertaining the nonsense they use to throw your way. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than a person who can't be baited anymore. You didn't have to say, "I see what you're doing." Your energies said it for you. Your boundaries said it for you. Your lack of reaction said it for you. Your peace screamed louder than any argument ever could. It's almost funny. They thought they were the ones observing you, analyzing you, reading you like a book. But the moment you caught even one glimpse of their patterns, the whole mask slipped. You didn't expose them intentionally, but you exposed the fact that they were only powerful as long as you stayed in the dark. They know you see them now. They know the old tricks won't work. They know the fake superiority has cracks. They know their intimidation lost its effect. They know their emotional games can't hit you the way they used to. And that realization, it shook them deeply, quietly, permanently. Here's what they don't want to admit. You were the one giving them relevance. Without you, they're just a person with a handful of manipulative habits and nowhere to aim them. And now that you're no longer orbiting their insecurity, they're forced to face what they were hiding from. You were never the fragile one they were. They depended on your confusion. They fed on your empathy. They clung to your loyalty. They abused your softness. But now that your clarity is sharp, Their influence looks ridiculous. Their guilt trips fall flat. Their little power plays seem childish. Their control tactics feel predictable, and they can feel you slipping out of their reach, not with anger, but with ease. And ease is what terrifies them the most. Because if you can walk away from their influence so effortlessly, what does that say about the power they swore they had? What does that say about the identity they built around controlling you? What does that say about the role they forced themselves into? You have them questioning themselves in a way they never expected. You have them wondering how long you've been seeing the truth. You have them wondering who else can see their weakness when they look at you. You have them replaying every moment where they thought they were fooling you. And that's the beauty of your evolution. You didn't hurt them. You humbled them. They're not terrified because you did something. They're terrified because you stopped doing something. You stopped needing them. You stopped validating them. You stopped shrinking for them. You stopped filling the role they imagined for you. And that shift made their influence collapse like cardboard in the rain. They always thought you'd stay predictable. You became unreadable. They always thought you'd stay dependent. You became self-sufficient. They always thought you'd stay silent. You became observant. They always thought you'd stay blind. You became aware. Your awareness is their nightmare. Your independence is their downfall. Your growth is their exposure. So now they're terrified, not because you attacked them, but because you outgrew them so naturally that their manipulation couldn't keep up. And when someone loses control over a person they once relied on controlling, they don't get angry, they get afraid. This is the part they'll never say out loud. You accidentally showed them how powerless they really were. And nothing is more humiliating to someone who built their identity on being in control. This is why their energy toward you shifted. This is why their tone changed. This is why they act uncomfortable, restless, defensive, or distant. This is why they look at you differently now. This is why they don't talk the same way anymore. This is why they react like you're unpredictable, because you are. You're unpredictable to them because they can't control you anymore. And that's what real fear looks like. Your evolution dismantled everything they thought they built around you. And you didn't even mean to do it. But trust me, they felt it. They still feel it. And they'll keep feeling it, because nothing haunts a manipulator more than the person who woke up. Number 2, you didn't just break their narrative, you burned the whole script in front of them. A liar's worst nightmare is someone who stops behaving the way their lies describe. When the truth walks in with its head held high, every false story starts choking. Nothing collapses faster than a narrative built on jealousy, trying to describe someone it can't control. They felt all three of those truths hit at once the moment you stepped out of the role they wrote for you. Because yes, they wrote one. They had a whole storyline prepared, and in their little fantasy, you were the supporting character, the lost one, the insecure one, the one who never figured things out. They needed you small so their story could seem big. They needed you confused so their lies could sound believable. They needed you predictable so their manipulation could stay hidden. Your whole identity in their eyes wasn't even yours. It was a version they painted, exaggerated, twisted, and repeated until even they believed it. Then something happened that they never prepared for. You woke up, you grew, you evolved, you stepped out of their narrative like stepping out of a fog, and suddenly, everything they crafted around you started falling apart. Imagine this. Someone builds a house from cardboard, decorates it, paints it, takes pictures of it, and tells everyone it's a mansion. They brag about how strong it is, how flawless it is, how they built it perfectly. But one day, a breeze rolls through. A soft, simple breeze, and the whole mansion collapses. That breeze was you, choosing to live in your truth. Here's another image. Picture someone stitching a puppet. They pick the strings, tie the knots, rehearse the movements. They practice pulling the puppet left, right, forward, backward. But one day the puppet stands up, cuts one string, then another, and finally looks them dead in the face with no fear. That's the moment their story about you died. You probably ask yourself, what story were they even trying to tell about me? Why did they need to twist everything? Because people who fear your potential will always try to control your image. They can't control your soul, so they try to control your reputation. They can't stop your growth, so they try to shape how others see you. They can't weaken you internally, so they try to weaken you externally. That's the blueprint of insecure manipulators. And here's what makes them terrified. Now, your evolution didn't just contradict their narrative, it exposed it. The truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs to exist. The moment you started making decisions that didn't match their script, their whole illusion cracked. You became stronger when they needed you fragile. You became calm when they needed you reactive. You became self-aware when they needed you confused. You became confident when they needed you uncertain. Every new version of you was another plot twist they didn't authorize. Imagine a movie where the villain is bragging about how they've figured out the hero, only for the hero to suddenly develop a new power, a new form, a new mindset the villain never saw coming. That's how they see you now. You change the genre without letting them rewrite the dialogue. And that's where their fear begins. They spent so much time shaping how others saw you, spreading subtle lies, dropping small remarks, twisting small details, rewriting intentions, repainting your character flaws darker than they really were, softening their own flaws so no one noticed. Every rumor, every whisper, every backhanded comment was meant to reinforce a single idea. You were beneath them. But when you started thriving, their story started dying. The moment you stepped into your strength, their story became unbelievable. The moment you spoke with clarity, their lies looked sloppy. The moment you stopped reacting, their accusations lost power. The moment you became self-aware, their narrative lost its anchor. You didn't fight them. You simply became undeniable. And everything undeniable ruins everything artificial. That's the part that scares them. They can't argue against your authenticity. They can't discredit results that people can see. They can't twist what's in front of them. They can't manipulate a story when the main character refuses to follow the script. Their biggest mistake was assuming you would stay the same forever. You grew. Their narrative didn't. You evolved. Their lies stayed stuck. You expanded. Their mindset stayed small. You rose. Their perception stayed outdated. And every time someone sees the new you, someone out there also sees the cracks in the story they tried to tell. That's why they panic around you now. Why they act awkward, why they avoid eye contact, why their tone shifts, why they seem defensive for no reason, why they try to pretend like nothing changed, because everything changed. When you rise, every lie told in your direction sinks, and trust me, they feel the sinking. Every moment you glow, something they said about you looks wrong. Every time you show strength, something they implied about you looks weak. Every time you make a healthy decision, something they exaggerated about you crumbles. Every time people see your real character, their false version loses value. You're not destroying their narrative on purpose. It's collapsing simply because it was never grounded in truth to begin with, and the part they struggle with the most. You didn't expose them through conflict or confrontation. You exposed them by becoming everything they insisted you could never be. They spent years trying to label you as unstable, yet here you stand, steady, composed, and deeply grounded. They tried to frame you as fragile, yet your resilience speaks far louder than any insecurity they projected onto you. They called you lost. Now your clarity makes them appear disoriented. They claimed you would never grow, yet you've evolved into someone beyond their reach. That's where their fear begins. Because if their version of you were accurate, you wouldn't exist as you are today. But you do, and that alone proves their story wasn't just flawed, it was completely exposed. It's like watching a stage illusion fall apart. A performer dazzles the audience with confidence and control until someone steps behind the curtain and sees how the trick is really done. In that moment, everything changes. The illusion loses its power, and the one who saw through it can never unsee the truth again. That's you. You stepped beyond the performance, and now the illusion no longer works, not on you, and not on anyone who sees through your eyes. Your presence alone dismantles their narrative. Your success contradicts their version. Your peace undermines their script. Your strength rewrites everything they tried to define about you. You didn't set out to destroy their story. You simply outgrew it. You became someone they can't categorize, can't control, and can't anticipate. Someone who no longer fits inside the limitations they once tried to impose. And that is why their entire narrative is breaking down. Because the more clearly people see you, the more clearly they begin to see them too. Your truth didn't just ruin their story, it erased the illusion they lived in, and it left them exposed to themselves. This is the fear they're living with now. You destroyed the narrative they hid behind, and you did it by becoming who you were always meant to be. Number 3, you outlived the trap they built to break you quietly. The cruelest shock to someone who wanted you shattered is realizing you survived what they designed for your destruction. They thought subtle destruction would be your downfall, not loud attacks, not obvious sabotage. No, your enemy chose the silent route, the psychological slow burn, the kind of emotional erosion that eats away at confidence grain by grain. They built that system on purpose, convinced that if they kept everything invisible, you'd crumble without anyone ever knowing why. They counted on your silence. They banked on your confusion. They expected your exhaustion. They truly believed you'd fold from pressure so quiet that even you would question if it was real. But here's the twist they never prepared for. You adapted quietly, skillfully, relentlessly. Imagine a plant trying to grow through concrete. No one sees the struggle happening beneath the surface. No one sees the pressure, the weight, the suffocation. Yet one day, a tiny crack appears. Then a green stem pushes through, like the laws of nature are bowing to it. That was you. They built concrete. You became the crack they can't patch. Or picture a glass jar they trapped you in. They tightened the lid, reduced the air, waited for you to suffocate emotionally. But you found a way to breathe anyway. You found micro moments of strength no one noticed. You found inner exits they didn't know existed. And when you walked out of that jar with your mind intact, your spirit steady, and your self-awareness sharper than ever, that was their nightmare becoming real. You might ask yourself, if I survived, why are they scared now? Because survival isn't neutral. Silent survival is evidence. It's proof you're far stronger than they assumed. It's proof their tactics failed. It's proof their influence wasn't absolute. They watch you now. Your clarity, your calmness, your confidence. And what they see is terrifying. You were supposed to break. Instead, you evolved. Every time you smile, they feel exposed. Every time you speak calmly, they feel powerless. Every time you make a choice without their shadow guiding it, they panic. You survived something that was engineered to destroy you in silence. And now your existence is the loudest thing in their world. You became the proof that their power had limits. And once someone like you learns to survive in the dark, you become unstoppable in the light. Number 4. You grew into someone their imagination was too small to predict. Nothing terrifies a controlling person more than realizing the seed they tried to stunt turned into a forest they can't navigate. They had your entire life charted out in their heads. Every reaction, every limit, every weakness. They swore they knew you better than you knew yourself. They built a mental cage and convinced themselves you'd never climb out. In their mind, your growth would always stay slow, predictable, easy to interrupt. They thought your potential came with an off switch they controlled. But growth doesn't follow their schedule. Growth doesn't wait for their permission. Growth doesn't check in with their ego to see if it's allowed. Imagine someone trying to cage the wind with their hands. They squeeze tighter, thinking they're in control. But the wind slips through every gap. That was you. Your evolution didn't fight them. It simply outgrew the boundaries they drew. Or picture them planting a tiny box around a sapling, confident it'll stay small forever. But one day, the roots break through, the branches extend. The box snaps in half like it was made of cardboard. That's what your awareness did to their control. You might wonder, why does my growth bother them so much? Because your growth exposed their limitations. Your strength exposed their insecurity. Your clarity exposed their manipulation. Your evolution exposed how wrong they were about you. Every new boundary you set, every moment you showed self-respect, every decision that didn't match their expectations, all of it was another reminder that they never actually shaped you. They only shaped the version of you they wanted to believe in. And now that version is dead. Your improvement didn't just surprise them, it embarrassed them, because they built their whole identity on thinking you were stuck. And now they're watching you rise level by level, while their assumptions crumble like dust in your shadow. They can't predict your next move. They can't measure your growth. They can't contain your direction. You grew in angles they never planned for, in depths they never imagined, and in strength they never believed you had. And that's why they're terrified. Your evolution exposed their imagination as the smallest thing in the room. Number 5. When you went quiet, their entire power supply went dark. The moment you stopped reacting was the moment their kingdom collapsed. Silence is the weapon they never saw coming. Nothing scares a manipulator more than a person who no longer gives them an emotional doorway. They built their whole strategy around your reactions. Your emotions were their electricity. Your responses were their oxygen. Your anger, confusion, explanations, defenses, that was their playground. They didn't need to raise their voice or launch big attacks. All they needed was one thing, your energy. As long as you reacted, they stayed powerful. As long as you explained yourself, they stayed relevant. As long as you got pulled into their drama, they controlled the script. But then something shifted inside you, quietly, sharply, permanently. You stopped reacting, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but because something in you finally clicked. Reacting to them was the same as obeying them. And once that realization hit, you walked out of their emotional arena without saying a word. Imagine a parasite losing its host. It panics, it thrashes, it starves. That's exactly what happened when you chose silence over engagement. They had no emotional fuel to feed on, no chaos to manipulate, no buttons to press. Your lack of response was the eviction notice they never thought you'd deliver. Or picture a puppeteer lifting the strings, ready to make the puppet dance, only to realize the puppet isn't attached anymore. Their hands move, nothing responds. They're left performing to an empty stage. You might ask yourself, why does my silence bother them more than my anger ever did? Because anger they can twist, confusion they can exploit, sadness they can use. But silence is control, silence is clarity, silence is freedom. Your stillness became the loudest rejection of their influence. Every ignored insult shattered their ego. Every calm breath exposed their dependency. Every moment you refused to engage showed them the truth. They never had power, they only had access. And now that access is gone. They can't read you, they can't provoke you, they can't predict you, they can't reach you. Your silence became a wall they cannot climb, a boundary they cannot bend, and a truth they cannot escape. You didn't destroy their influence by fighting harder. You destroyed it by stepping out of reach. And that quiet, controlled distance, that's the thing that terrifies them the most. Number 6. You didn't lose them, you just stopped pretending they mattered. Nothing crushes an ego faster than realizing the person they thought depended on them never needed them at all. The deadliest rejection isn't loud. It's living well without someone who swore you couldn't. They had this whole fantasy built around the idea that they were vital to your existence. In their mind, they were the mentor, the backbone, the savior, the irreplaceable presence you'd collapse without. They needed that belief like oxygen. It made them feel powerful, superior, relevant. It let them mask their insecurity under a costume of importance. But then something happened that blew their entire self-image to dust. You stopped needing them. Not dramatically, not with accusations or speeches. You simply operated on your own. You made choices without checking in. You handled your emotions without their interference. You lived without chasing their approval, and that quiet independence stabbed deeper than any confrontation ever could. Imagine someone holding a key, bragging about how you'd never get through the door without them. Then you calmly walk around the back and use another entrance. The key becomes meaningless. The person holding it becomes irrelevant. That's the moment they realized they weren't essential, they were just convenient. Or picture them standing on a pedestal they built themselves, convinced the whole world sees them as central to your growth. Then one day you stop looking up. Suddenly that pedestal becomes a lonely, embarrassing place to stand. You might ask yourself, why did my independence scare them so much? Because your independence exposed their illusion. Your calm detachment proved their role was never as big as they advertised. Your self-sufficiency revealed a truth they spent years avoiding. They were never the backbone of your life. They were a shadow standing in a place you outgrew. Every step you took without them cracked their self-image. Every decision you made on your own erased their imaginary importance. Every moment you thrived without their input forced them to face a humiliating truth. They were tolerated, not treasured, included, not needed, present, not powerful. Your freedom didn't just remove them, it exposed their irrelevance. And that, more than anything, is why they're terrified now. Number 7. Your healing didn't just free you, it exposed their whole playbook as useless. The moment you healed, their power evaporated because broken was the only version of you their strategy worked on. Your recovery wasn't a comeback, it was the final proof that their influence was always a cheap illusion. They built their entire strategy on one assumption: that your wounds would keep you obedient. They didn't need you chained, they just needed you hurting. Pain makes people predictable, and they thought your pain was permanent. They counted on your old triggers, your insecurities, your scars. They believed if they could remind you of your weaknesses enough times, you'd never rise high enough to see their manipulation clearly. But then you did something they never prepared for. You healed. Not halfway, not temporarily, not to impress anyone. You healed for real, from the inside out, layer by layer, wound by wound. Imagine someone building a prison with invisible walls. They assume you'll stay trapped because they convinced you the walls are solid. But one day you test them, and your hand goes straight through. That's what healing did for you. It showed you that the barriers they spent years installing were made of smoke. Or picture someone tying you with ropes made of fear and guilt. They think the knots are permanent because you never tried to pull away. But once you finally tug, the rope snaps like old string. Your healing didn't just set you free, it embarrassed them. You might wonder, why does my healing terrify them so much? Because healing is the one thing they cannot weaponize. They can twist your emotions, but they can't twist your recovery. They can exploit your pain, but they can't exploit your self-awareness. They can cling to your wounds, but they can't cling to your strength. Your healed version is the one they never wanted to meet. Every layer of clarity you gained exposed how weak their strategy truly was. Every boundary you built made their manipulation useless. Every moment you chose peace over panic erased the leverage they depended on. Your healing flipped their entire system upside down. They see it now painfully. Their power wasn't real, their influence wasn't permanent, their control wasn't skill. It was your trauma. And now that the trauma is gone, so is their access. You no longer break the way you used to. You no longer react the way you once did. You no longer believe the lies you once absorbed. Your healing invalidated everything they designed to keep you small. And here's the part that hits them the hardest. They can't undo it. They can't reverse it. They can't manipulate their way back into your mind. Your healing is permanent. Your strength is locked in. Your self-respect is non-negotiable. They are terrified because your growth proves the truth. They tried to bury. They only looked powerful when you were hurting. Now that you're healed, they look like nothing at all. Number 8. Your evolution became the mirror they never wanted to look into. Nothing haunts a guilty person more than the success of the one they tried to break. Your growth didn't expose them with words. It exposed them with contrast. You becoming whole is the receipt they can't rip up. They never expected your growth to pull back the curtain on their behavior. In their mind, they could move however they wanted, manipulate the story, twist the emotions, shift the blame, and you would stay too overwhelmed or too confused to ever notice. They thought your silence meant ignorance. They thought your forgiveness meant blindness. They thought your empathy meant weakness. But then you evolved, and your evolution dragged their truth into the light. Imagine someone throwing dirt on a white shirt, convinced no one will see it because the room is dark. But then someone flips the switch. Suddenly, the stains glow. That's what your growth did. You turned on the lights they never thought you'd reach. Now every petty tactic, every subtle cruelty, every hidden agenda is sitting in plain sight with nowhere to hide. Or picture them building a false image of themselves with cheap plastic, shiny, impressive, perfect from afar. But then you started rising, becoming stronger, clearer, more self-aware. And beside your authenticity, their mask suddenly looked flimsy. That comparison alone created guilt sharp enough to cut through every lie they told themselves. You might wonder, Why does my progress make them uncomfortable? Why does my healing bother them? Because your growth is evidence. Evidence of what they did. Evidence of what they tried to shape. Evidence of what you survived. You becoming whole forces them to acknowledge they played a part in breaking you. And that guilt, it's the one consequence they never prepared for. Your rise is the confession they'll never say out loud. Every boundary you enforce reminds them of the lines they crossed. Every calm decision you make reminds them of the chaos they created. Every moment you choose peace reminds them of the turmoil they fed off. Every success you claim reminds them of how hard they tried to hold you back. Your growth invalidates their excuses. Your clarity destroys their narratives. Your independence exposes their selfishness. And the worst part for them, you don't want revenge. You don't need their apology. You don't even need acknowledgement. Your thriving alone is enough to force their conscience awake. Your evolution became the mirror they can't escape. And every time they see you leveling up, that mirror reflects the guilt they tried to bury. Your growth doesn't just liberate you. It convicts them quietly, relentlessly, permanently. Number 9. You walked away from a contract they thought you'd signed in blood. The biggest shock to someone who depended on your kindness is realizing your kindness was voluntary, not a lifetime subscription. When you stop agreeing to a role you never auditioned for, the whole power structure collapses. They built an entire system around your willingness to overgive. Not because you were weak, but because you were generous, patient, loyal, understanding. They mistook that for obligation. They mistook your heart for debt. They built an invisible contract around you, one they never had the courage to say out loud. You exist to make my life easier. They assumed you'd keep giving without limits. They assumed your support was permanent. They assumed your energy was theirs to borrow whenever their insecurities flared up. But then, and that simple shift shattered the entire unspoken agreement they were depending on to feel powerful. Imagine a vending machine they've been using for years. Push a button, get what they want. No cost, no effort. Then one day the machine goes dark. No noise, no explanation. They press the button again. Nothing. They shake it. Nothing. They pound on the glass. Nothing. That's the panic they feel now, because you were never a vending machine and your energy was never their product. Or picture a person sitting on a throne made of your emotional labor. Your patience was the seat. Your tolerance was the legs. Your forgiveness was the backrest. The day you took those pieces back, their throne didn't just wobble, it collapsed, and they hit the floor hard enough to finally understand how much of their power was borrowed from you. You might ask yourself, why does my independence feel like a threat to them? Because independence destroys dependency. Because choosing yourself means they lose access. Because your boundaries expose their entitlement. Because your refusal unmasks how much they took from you without giving anything back. Your no was the eviction notice they never thought you'd deliver. They feel the shift instantly. Their guilt trips fall flat. Their emotional pressure doesn't land. Their expectations get ignored. Their attempts to pull you back feel pathetic even to them. And the part that scares them the most, you didn't need a confrontation to free yourself. You didn't scream. You didn't explain. You didn't negotiate. You simply stopped participating in a system you never agreed to. That quiet rebellion hits harder than any argument because it proves something they never wanted to accept. Their power only existed because you allowed it. Your absence shows them how much they depended on you. Your boundaries show them how unbalanced the relationship was. Your independence shows them how unnecessary their control really is. Your peace shows them how much chaos they expected you to carry. Their fear now isn't about losing you. It's about facing the truth that they were never needed, never essential, never the backbone they pretended to be. By breaking the unspoken dependency contract, you exposed their entire system as hollow. You showed them that your effort was a gift, not a duty. Your presence was a choice, not a contract. And your energy was a privilege, not a guarantee. That truth, it terrifies anyone whose power depended on your silence. Number 10. Your entire comeback became the receipt they can't argue with. Nothing exposes a person faster than the success of the one they mistreated. You didn't tell the truth about them. You became the truth. Your healing is the evidence they prayed no one would ever see. They spent years counting on one thing: secrecy. They thought the way they treated you would stay hidden under excuses, charm, fake innocence, and carefully curated narratives. In their mind, you were the perfect shield, quiet, forgiving, confused, too loyal to ever piece things together. They assumed the story would always tilt in their favor because they mastered the art of pretending. But they miscalculated one massive thing: your evolution. When you healed, when you grew, when you stepped into your strength, you didn't just move forward. You exposed everything they tried to bury. Not with words, not with accusations, not with drama, but with your life. You became the kind of grounded, self-aware, dignified human they never expected you to become. And that version of you is a walking contradiction to every lie they ever told. Imagine someone hiding cracks in a wall with posters and decorations. It looks perfect until the lights get brighter. That brighter light is you now. The fractures they once believed were hidden forever are now impossible to ignore, and they realize there's no way left to conceal or deny them. Or imagine them rewriting the past in their minds, casting themselves as the wise one, the victim, or even the hero, only to watch you grow in a way that collapses their entire version of events. Your stability dismantles their justifications. Your growth erases the weight of their narrative. Your calm presence invalidates every accusation they once tried to attach to your name. You may ask yourself, why does my progress unsettle them so deeply? Because every step you take forward reveals something about their past. Your strength exposes their fragility, your boundaries highlight where they overstepped, and your peace quietly reflects the chaos they once created around you. You didn't need to expose them. Outgrowing them was enough to reveal everything. Every new level you reach reminds them of every attempt they made to hold you back, and how all of them failed. Every layer of clarity you gain makes their hidden intentions harder to disguise. Every moment you carry yourself with dignity proves they misjudged you from the very beginning. And what disturbs them most is this: your existence itself is permanent evidence. You cannot be silenced. You cannot be rewritten. You cannot be erased. You endured what was meant to define you, and instead you became what defines the entire story. That truth, unspoken yet undeniable, is something they cannot control, distort, or escape. So, chosen one, you walked out of the cage they built and never once looked back. That alone proves everything they tried to shape, limit, or control was never strong enough to contain you. Your growth exposed their weakness. Your freedom revealed their intentions, and your evolution proved they were never the author of your life. You were.